of the Krishnabook. So sorry we've been away so long. We basically had a vacation. Somebody say you cannot really have a vacation in spiritual life. But anyway, we did. So by the blessings of the devotees, then we are back again after a too long-winded vacation. So we'll just dive right into it. Why Duryodhana felt insulted at the end of the Rajasuya sacrifice. So that's the title of the chapter in the Krishnabook, which is Prabhupada's, you can say, prose version of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. I will also have some references to the 75th chapter of the Bhagavatam proper, and there that chapter is called Duryodhana Humiliated. So that's also the name of today's stream. Okay, so King Yudhishthira was known as Ajata Shatru, or a person who had no enemy. Therefore, when all the men, demigods, kings, sages, and saints saw the successful termination of the Rajasuya Yagya performed by King Yudhishthira, they were very happy. So the word termination, it doesn't mean determination. It means the end. It doesn't mean the destruction in this case. Like you have the label Terminator. Is not like that here. Termination, it just means that it was actually successfully ended. Yeah. So they were very happy. That Duryodhana alone was unhappy was astonishing to Maharaj Parikshit, and therefore he requested Shukadeva Goswami to explain this. So first of all, who is Shukadeva Goswami and who is Maharaj Parikshit? Well, Maharaj Parikshit, he has gotten a death sentence, so to speak, by being cursed to die by a snake bite in 1 week. So he's sitting by the sacred river Ganga, and he's now hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, also called Bhagavat Shapta. From who? From Shukadeva Goswami, who's the 16-year-old saint. So in that way, he's explaining to Maharaj Parikshit everything that goes on basically in the material world, including the story of Krishna. Shukadeva Goswami said, "My dear King Parikshit, your grandfather King Yudhishthira was a great soul. His congenial disposition attracted everyone to be his friend, and therefore he was known as Agyata Shatru, one who never created an enemy." So just to mince up the Sanskrit here, Shatru, it means enemy. Agyata, it means not born. So his enemy was not born. Like that. So in that way, the word ja is also used in that connection, that you are creating something. For example, friendships or enmity. So he had never created, in other words, enmity with nobody. He engaged all the members of the Kuru dynasty in taking charge of different departments for the management of the Rajasuya sacrifice. Yeah.
Okay, maybe you can hear me?
I can hear you. Your mic is fine.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Just please continue.
Yeah, so he engaged all the members of the Kuru dynasty in taking charge of different departments for the management of the Rajasuya sacrifice. So mind you, this was the biggest sacrifice on the earth. For example, Bhimasena was put in charge of the kitchen department. So who is Bhimasena? Usually we hear him as Bhima. Sena is actually a kind of a military epithet. I mean, it means something that he was, a commander, a warrior, like that, soldier. Yeah. Duryodhana in charge of the treasury department, Sadeva in charge of the reception department, Nakula in charge of the supplies department, and Arjuna in charge of looking after the comforts of the elderly persons. So who is Sadeva and Nakula? Well, they are the brothers of Arjuna and Bhima. And then who is the fifth one? That is Yudhishthira. So he was simply on the head of the operation. So he was not doing these, you can say, different departments. He was actually the head commander of the whole thing. And comforts of the elderly person, I just want to chip in there and say this is called Vriddha Seva, to serve the elders, and that was said to be a very auspicious thing to do for oneself, so that one would get what is called blessings. So these things are maybe not so popular today, but I have a feeling it will get back into fashion. Okay, so the most astonishing feature was that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, took charge of washing the feet of oh, there was a typo in here. Washing the feet of fortunate Draupadi. Wait a minute. We lost actually some text there, sorry. Somewhere or other some text was disappearing. Let's see if I can get it back. Anyway. Okay, I'll just put some dots there, so that we understand some text was lost there. But I remember what was the text. I mean, kind of. So the thing is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he took charge of washing the feet of the distinguished guests. Actually, all the guests who came there, he washed their feet. And fortunate Draupadi, she was in charge of administering the distribution of food. And because Karna was famous for giving charity, he was put in charge of the charity department. So you have the famous story that Karna, he was born of the sun god. So when Karna was born, he was born with the armor only plastered on his body, so to speak. So armor, fighters, they put so they're protected for if somebody shoots an arrow at the armor, it won't hit the chest of the person. So in that way, his chest was protected by armor. But once Indra he came, and Karna he actually cut off the armor of his body and gave it to Indra. I don't remember the context, but in that way he gave his armor actually in charity to Indra. Probably because he felt Indra was his superior. And similarly, it was very favorable to the Brahmanas and gave them, whatever they needed. Yeah. Okay, so the queen. Well, the text has been actually a little scrambled here. I don't know how that happened. Yeah, but anyway, I'll just kind of connect the dots there. Yeah, so in this way, Satyaki, Vikarna, Hardika, Vidura, Santardana, and Burishava, the son of Balaka, were all engaged in different departments for managing the affairs of the Rajasura sacrifice. Yeah, so there were a lot of other people also engaged. So these are all great warriors, which have just now been mentioned. Actually, all were great warriors, including Draupadi. She was a princess, so she was also a kshatriya, and she could fight also. Of course, she mostly didn't do that, because in the culture here, the women, they were more protected than having to walk out on the battlefield with sword in hand. But once she was actually kidnapped by one of the kshatriyas, and then she gave him a good punch in the nose. Yeah. Okay, so they were also bound in loving affection for King Yudhishthira, that they simply wanted to please him. After Shishupala died by the mercy of Lord Krishna and merged into the spiritual existence, and after the end of the Rajasuya Yagya, so here we have another term, Yagya. Okay, so that means the same as sacrifice. It's the same sacrifice we're talking about. When all the friends, guests, and well-wishers had been fully honored and rewarded, King Yudhishthira went to bathe in the Ganges. So that's the same as the Ganga. The city of Hastinapur stands today on the bank of the Yamuna, and the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam was that King Yudhishthira went to bathe in the Ganges indicates therefore that during the time of the Pandavas, the river Yamuna was also known as the Ganga. Okay, it's the same river. Okay, it was called Yamuna after Krishna. He put his presence there in the water. Then it became extra purified. So that part, from where Krishna had his leelas in the Ganga, that became later known as Yamuna. Okay, while the king was taking the Avabrita bath, different musical instruments vibrated, such as mridangas, conch shells, panava drums, kettle drums, and bugles. and the ankle bells of the dancing girls jingled. Many groups of professional singers sang as venas, flutes, gongs, and cymbals were played, and thus a tumultuous sound vibrated in the sky. So you know cymbals. So that's exactly the same as we have in our regular temples, called the kartals, hand cymbals. Very simple instrument, you can say, but gives a great sound. The princely guests from many kingdoms like Srinjaya, Cambodia, Kuru, Kekaya, and Korsala were present with their different flags and gorgeously decorated elephants, chariots, horses, and soldiers. All of them passed in a procession, with King Yudhishthira at the forefront, the executive members who had performed their sacrifice, the priests, religious ministers, and brahmanas, all loudly chanted the Vedic hymns. So he said loudly. So, you know, at those days there weren't microphones. So it explained, so how do you get your sound to travel a long way? Because we're talking about thousands and thousands of, you know, audience here, without using a mic. How do they do? Well, you select, you know, the people who have the loudest voices. And they have some different techniques, you know, how to actually make the voice as loud as possible by very expertly using, you know, the air. And then on top of that, actually very important, is that they had to be on a high pavilion. So they were doing all these things very high up. So the people were, you know, down below. And in that way, the sound can travel very nicely, freely in the air for a long distance. Yeah. Okay, the demigods and the inhabitants of Pitraloka and Gandharvaloka, as well as many sages, showered flowers from the sky. The men and women of Hastinapur or Indraprastha, their bodies smeared with scents and floral oils, were nicely dressed in colorful garments and decorated with garlands, jewels, and ornaments. And during the ceremony, they threw on one another liquid substances like water, oil, milk, butter, and yogurt. Sorry, it looks like I haven't been reading English for a long time. I'll get into it. The professional prostitutes jubilantly smeared these liquid substances on the bodies of the men. The men reciprocated in the same way. So don't get shocked now, but there were prostitutes also in the Vedic times. They were very luxurious. And it looks like the term prostitute was used a little more loosely than it is today. So they may not have been selling, you know, their bodies for sex. They may have just been kind of, you can say, professional dancers and stuff like that. Also, yeah. All the liquid substances had been mixed with turmeric and saffron, and their color was a lustrous yellow. Yeah. So apparently, you know, the color yellow and also saffron, very, very, you know, auspicious colors to use in festivals. Okay, in order to observe the great ceremony, many wives of the demigods had come in different airplanes, and they were visible in the sky. Yeah, so how are they visible? Because they're sitting on these airplanes, which are called vimanas in Sanskrit. And there are tons of stories about these vimanas being, you know, ridden. I mean, the demigods are using vimanas as vehicles to go from A to B. For example, they like to sport in some great big mountains in the Himalayas. For example, the Gandhamadana mountains. So these areas are not accessible by mortal human beings. And they also have, you know, higher class bodies by which they can enjoy much more. And they can also do things like that, you know, effortlessly, such as traveling in airplanes and residing in the clouds also. Sometimes it is explained like that also. They can make themselves invisible. They can also change their shapes. So that way they are really catching everything that goes on in the Krishna Lila from the top of the skies. Okay, so similarly, the queens of the royal family, gorgeously decorated and surrounded by bodyguards, arrived on different palanquins. So this was the style back in the day, that when great royal women were out, they were carried on the palanquins. So a palanquin is like is a carrier. So you need to have at least one transporter in the front and one in the back. Usually there were 4 altogether, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. and the lady is sitting there on nice cushions, this palanquin. And not only that, but she is protected from that other people should not view her by curtains on all four sides. And it all is very nicely decorated, of course. Okay, so during this time, Lord Krishna, the maternal cousin of the Pandavas, and his special friend Arjuna were both throwing the liquid substances on the bodies of the queens. So how is Krishna the maternal cousin? Well, it comes through the relationship of what's the other lady in the Pandava family? Kunti. Kunti is the mother of the 5 Pandavas. Well, actually, of 3 of them. Mother is the mother of Nakula and Sadev. No, wait a minute. How is this again? I don't remember the family line 100%. But yeah, there is something about Kunti and Krishna's father Vasudeva. I think Kunti was somehow or other connected there through Vasudeva's father. So Krishna's father's father, I guess he had, I guess Vasudeva and Kunti, some or other, they were siblings. Or there was some kind of connection there. If not siblings, then another connection. So in that way, Krishna is the maternal cousin of the Pandavas. Yeah. And his special friend Arjuna were both throwing the liquid substances on the bodies of the queens. So the queens became bashful, but at the same time their beautiful smiling brightened their faces. Because of the liquids thrown on their bodies, the saris covering them became completely wet. The different parts of their beautiful bodies, particularly their breasts and their waists, became partially visible because of the wet cloth. The queens brought buckets of the same liquid substances and with syringes sprinkled them on the bodies of their brothers-in-law. As they engaged in such jubilant activities, their hair fell loose and the flowers decorating their bodies began to fall. When Lord Krishna, Arjuna and the queens were thus engaged in these jubilant activities, persons who were not clean in heart were agitated by lustful desires. In other words, such behavior between pure males and females is enjoyable, but it makes persons who are material contaminated become lustful. King Yudhishthira, in a gorgeous chariot yoked to excellent horses, was present there along with his queens. So there was a lot of queens, okay. Usually a king had more than one queen, and that was the case with all the Pandavas. They had several wives. Of course, they had the one main wife, and that was Draupadi, which they shared actually. So you can ask, is this really proper? But actually, that was Draupadi's own desire from her previous life to have actually 5 great husbands. Actually, it said she did tapasya in her previous life, and Lord Shiva came because she was praying to Lord Shiva for a long time while fasting and doing other austerities. And then Shiva came, and she was so eager to have a husband. So Shiva was asking, what do you want? And she said, I want a great husband. 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 So be it. You will get 5 husbands. Because she said it 5 times. And actually she was very happy with the 5 Pandavas. And they were very happy with her. She was an amazing queen. The most amazing queen in history, really. Okay, so following the Rajasuya sacrifice, there was the Vedic ritualistic duty known as Patni Samyagya. No, sorry, that's the Patni Samyaja. This sacrifice, which one performs along with one's wife, was also duly conducted by the priests of King Yudhishthira. As Queen Draupadi and King Yudhishthira were taking their Avabrita bath, the citizens of Hastinapur as well as the demigods began to beat on drums and blow trumpets out of feelings of happiness, and there was a shower of flowers from the sky. Okay, let's just have a comment on that. So Patni, that means the wife, okay? So she's doing that Yaja. So usually it's called Yagya, but sometimes it's called Yaja also. It's also a sacrifice, really. Then she is together with the king. Actually, it's said in texts about doing Vedic rituals. It says that the wife of the man who is doing the man is usually the person who is doing the rituals. He's putting his hand on the sacrificial spoon, putting ghee on the fire, saying the mantras. But the wife, she can also partake in that and sit by the side. Actually, it's recommended that she take care of the of the sacrifice together with the husband, and in that way the sacrifice will be more auspicious actually. So that is one thing. And afterwards they are taking something called the avabrita snana. That's a bath which one is supposed to do after any kind of sacrifice, but especially after the Rajasuya sacrifice, there is really obligatory to do that. It's not really a free choice where you're going to take a bath or not. After this Rajasuya sacrifice, you really have to do that. So that's why it's described in every instance when we hear about that. It's said that the king is taking the avabrita snana. I haven't heard that the queen did it, but here we also hear the queen did it. Yeah. So and that's very auspicious. So the citizens of Hastinapur as well as the demigods began to beat on drums and blow trumpets out of feelings of happiness, and there was a shower of flowers from the sky. So the idea here is that the king is doing all this not for himself, but he's doing that for the welfare of the whole state, for all these pragyas, which are all these people. So they feel happy because the king is transferring his punya or auspicious results to his citizens. He's their biggest well-wisher. So he's doing all these great sacrifices, and he's just sending all the results of that to all the people. So in that way they become afflicted with the happiness that the king has. So this is the greatest relationship a king can have with his citizens. To be he's actually described as like a family relationship. He's like the father and they are like the children of the king. When the king and the queen finished their bath in the Ganges, all the other citizens, consisting of all the varnas or castes, the brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas and shudras, took their baths in the Ganges. Bathing in the Ganges is recommended in the Vedic literatures because by such bathing one is freed from all sinful reactions. This is still current in India, especially at particularly auspicious moments. At such times, millions of people bathe in the Ganges. So, of course, the thought comes to the recent Kumbh Mela, which is the greatest bathing ceremony in the world, and the biggest ever was supposed to have been taking place now. It's something like it's more than 6 months ago, maybe it's almost a year ago. In India, of course, was millions upon millions who were bathing at the same time. After taking his bath, King Yudhishthira dressed in a new silken cloth and wrapper and decorated himself with valuable jewelry. The king not only dressed himself and decorated himself, but also gave clothing and ornaments to all priests and others who had participated in the yagyas. In this way he worshipped them all. He constantly worshipped his friends, his family members, his relatives, his well-wishers and everyone present. Because he was a Vaishnava, a great devotee of Lord Narayan, he knew how to treat everyone well. The Mayavadi philosophers endeavor to see everyone as God. The Mayavadi philosophers endeavor to see everyone as God is an artificial attempt at oneness, but the Vaishnava, or devotee of Lord Narayan, sees every living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, a Vaishnava's treatment of other living entities is on the absolute platform. As one cannot treat one part of his body different from another part, because they all belong to the same body, a Vaishnava does not see a human being as distinct from an animal, because in both he sees the soul and the super soul seated together. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just go a little bit down, because otherwise we won't have time. I just gave myself 30 minutes to do this today's reading. We'll go on for longer next time. So I'll just fast forward a little bit. So now we come to the point of Duryodhana, because after all that was the name of the chapter, that Duryodhana was humiliated. So when Duryodhana saw that Maharaj Yudhishthira had become very famous after performing the Rajasuya Yagya and was fully satisfied in every respect, he began to burn with the fire of envy, because his mind was always poisonous. For one thing, he envied the imperial palace constructed by the demon Maya for the Pandavas. The palace was excellent in its puzzling artistic workmanship and was befitting the position of great princes, kings or leaders of the demons. In that great palace the Pandavas lived with their family members, and Queen Draupadi served her husbands very peacefully. And because in those days Lord Krishna was also there, the palace was also decorated by his thousands of queens. So yeah, that's one way of putting it. His queens were so beautiful, in other words, that they decorated the palace by their presence. Yeah. When the queens with their heavy breasts and thin waists moved within the palace, and their ankle bells rang very melodiously with their movement, the whole palace appeared more opulent than the heavenly kingdom. Because a portion of their breasts was sprinkled with saffron powder, the pearl necklaces on their breasts appeared reddish. So again, this saffron is very, very auspicious. So in that way, the sight of such a queen with saffron sprinkled on her body is very auspicious sight. So they were creating auspiciousness by their presence in such a way. With their beautiful earrings and flowing hair, the queens appeared very attractive. After seeing such beauties in the palace of King Yudhishthir, Duryodhana was envious. He was especially envious and lustful upon seeing the beauty of Draupadi, because he had cherished a special attraction from her from the very beginning of her marriage with the Pandavas. In the marriage selection assembly of Draupadi, Duryodhana had also been present, and along with other princes he had been very much captivated by the beauty of Draupadi, but he had failed to achieve her. So he was among the candidates for marrying her. But Arjuna, he was the one to marry Draupadi. Once upon a time, King Yudhishthir was sitting on his golden throne in a palace constructed by the demon Maya. So now we are maybe the day after or something, or maybe a few days. And Duryodhana is still, in envious mode. His four brothers and other relatives, as well as his great well-wisher Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, was very present, and the material opulence of King Yudhishthir seemed no less than that of Lord Brahma. When he was sitting on the throne, surrounded by his friends, and the reciters were offering praise to him in the form of nice songs, Duryodhana came to the palace with his younger brothers. So Duryodhana, he had 100 brothers. He probably didn't bring all of them, but a few of them at least. And Yudhishthir had, as you know, 4 brothers. That was Arjuna, Bhima, Nakula and Sahadev. And Krishna was their friend, so he was also there. Duryodhana was decorated with a helmet, and he carried a sword in his hand. He was always in an envious and angry mood, and therefore, on a slight provocation, he spoke sharply with the doorkeepers and became angry. He would say he was behaving, like a very, short-fused person. Not very nice to be around. By the craftsmanship of the demon Maya, the palace was so decorated in different places that one who did not know the tricks would consider water to be land and land to be water. So Maya, it means illusion. So this Maya Danava, which is his full name, he was the architect of the demons, or maybe he still is. I don't know if he still exists. He's supposed to be active, in the nether worlds. We have, 14 planetary systems. The one in the middle is called the earthly planetary system, and then you have 6 above, and then you have 7 down. And the one who has created a lot of niceties in the 7 lower planets, they're also sometimes called Bila Svarga, or the underground heavenly realms. So it's heavenly because Mayadanava has created a lot of nice illusions there. You can say nice machines and palaces and whatnot. Yeah, and what you call moving vehicles. Okay, so in that way, they are enjoying a lot down there, and he knows how to create something that looks like something else. So this was some kind of amusement palace. Yeah. So Duryodhana was illusioned by this craftsmanship, and when crossing water, thinking it to be land, he fell in. When Duryodhana, out of his foolishness, had thus fallen, the queens enjoyed the incident by laughing. When Yudhishthir could understand the feelings of Duryodhana, King Yudhishthira could understand the feelings of Duryodhana and tried to restrain the queens, but Lord Krishna indicated that King Yudhishthira should not restrain them from enjoying the incident. So we have Yudhishthira, he's always Dharmaraj, he's very polite. He doesn't like anybody to be made fun of, even his enemy. Duryodhana was definitely King Yudhishthira's enemy, but King Yudhishthira, as we earlier heard, he had the epithet of Agyata Shatru. He was called Agyata Shatru, the one who doesn't make any enemies. So he didn't want to be enemy of Duryodhana. So he didn't want anybody to laugh at him. And he tried to stop the queens from doing so. But Lord Krishna went against that, and he motioned to them that they should just keep on laughing. So Yudhishthira, he then, had to give up. Yudhishthira desired that Duryodhana be fooled in that way, and that all of them enjoy his foolish behavior. When everyone laughed, Duryodhana felt very insulted, and his bodily hairs stood up in anger. Being thus insulted, he immediately left the palace, bowing his head. He was silent and did not protest. When Duryodhana left in such an angry mood, everyone regretted the incident, and King Yudhishthira also was very sorry. But despite all these occurrences, Krishna was silent. He did not say anything against or in favor of the incident. It appeared that Duryodhana had been put into illusion by the supreme will of Lord Krishna, and this was the beginning of the enmity between the two sects of the Kuru dynasty. So, of course, later then we have the whole battlefield of Kurukshetra taking place in 18 days, killing at least 18 million people. This appeared to be a part of Krishna's plan in his mission to decrease the burden of the world. So, in other words, these sentences are indicating the war of the Kurukshetra. The name of Duryodhana is also interesting because he's sometimes called Suyodhan. He means a good fighter. Yuddha comes from Yudhi means fight or war. So he's a good fighter, but then Duryodhana means a bad fighter, or you can say evil fighter. So he was born with the name Suyodhan, but he ended up famous as Duryodhana. And that was because of his character. Yeah. King Parikshit had inquired from Shukadeva Goswami why Duryodhana was not satisfied after the termination of the great Rajasuya sacrifice, and thus it was explained by Shukadeva Goswami. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 75th chapter of Krishna, why Duryodhana felt insulted at the end of the Rajasuya sacrifice. So, Christopher Prabhu, you have any comments or questions on this?
No, I just listened to what's his name? Amal Bhakta. He has the audiobook on the entire Bhagavatam. So I just finished Canto 10, and this is where it's from, right?
Great. Yeah, it's from the 75th chapter of Canto 10. Yeah. And we get a few more details there.
Yeah, but I guess it's one of Krishna's pastime, but it's taking out of context a little bit, but still there is some context.
What do you mean by taking out of context?
Because we're just reading some, maybe, how much was it? Not an entire chapter, but...
Well, we were reading, it was a kind of a summary on that 75th chapter.
Oh, okay.
Because it's actually the exact same number. It's the 75th chapter in Canto 10, and in the Krishnabook is also chapter 75.
Okay.
But, we can fill in a few more details. It was said that...
there is also an account from the Mahabharata, where it's like the Rajasuya, where Duryodhana is like he's tripping in the water fountain and all this thing.
Yeah, because there's another thing that's there. It is that here we hear, he thinks it's solid floor, and then it's not solid floor; it's actually water. But the other instance mentioned in the Bhagavatam proper is that he elsewhere he taught that the solid floor was water, because it was made the illusion in another place that the floor looked like water, and so he took up his dress and tried to step in, so he wouldn't get his dress wet. But then it was actually just a solid floor, so then they also laughed at him.
In the Mahabharata, it was a version, reading the long version of the Mahabharata. there's like even more things that he walks into more confusing rooms.
Yeah, actually, I've heard that one. What was the other? What were the other rooms?
Oh, I can't. The one was where he thought it was water and it wasn't. It was just the floor, and one was it was the water, and I thought it was one where he hit his head or something really bad.
Yeah, I think I heard that one. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, maybe he walked into like a crystal wall and he didn't see anything there.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he was, he remained silent, but internally he swore to get revenge. Yeah.
He was building up a lot of anger inside.
Yes, and in the long version of Mahabharata that I read also that he was actually speaking a long time or lamenting with Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra was in the beginning, we should be patient with the Pandavas. King Yudhishthira is very nice king, and he cares a lot about you. But Duryodhana, he just laments more and more, and eventually Dhritarashtra is like he's also slowly gaining also on the side of Duryodhana, thinking also, okay, my dear son, because
it's true. Yeah, it said that was the fault of Dhritarashtra. He had a weak heart for his son, even though the son was a rascal. Yeah. So
Duryodhana is like lamenting more and more, and explaining how it's pained so much to see the success of the Pandavas.
Yeah. Actually, I have that piece of Mahabharata in front of me now. What happens after this incident? So then Duryodhana, he's coming back, and he's talking with his council, which is Shakuni. Shakuni was, that evil person who helped him to have the game of dice.
Oh, right. He was the cheater.
Yeah, which was, the fatal game which kicked the Pandavas out of the kingdom, because they lost everything, and even they lost Draupadi even, and she was humiliated there. So that was all happening after this. So in that way, he kind of took revenge. Not just kind of, he really took revenge, actually. But of course, later he is going to be killed. So at the end of the day, so it's really the plot of a really good movie or story that you have. That it looks like Duryodhana is getting the upper hand after the game of dice, the gambling match. But then after that, there is the great war. Or Mahabharata war, and then Duryodhana. Yeah.
The exile. It's first. How long is it? 13 years exile.
It was 14, and then you can say it was 13, but then the 14th year was also there. But then they were allowed to live in incognito, in one palace or somewhere.
I thought it was 12 years, and then the 13th year they live incognito.
Okay, probably you're right. Yeah. Because, but I heard 14 years. Maybe that's from the Ramayana. Maybe there were 14 years in exile.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah, because both of these, Mahabharata and Ramayana, they have that in common, that there is this long period of exile for the hero. So Shakuni is helping Duryodhana to arrange for this gambling match. And he really wants it. Duryodhana really wants it. It's actually he who really wants it. And some of his advisors said that he shouldn't do it, but he really wants to have it. And in that way, they have the gambling match, and that some or other it ends well for the Pandavas. They are not losing.
It was even it was here and there. Dhritarashtra was back and forth. Sometimes he was like, oh no, you shouldn't steal from the Pandavas, but internally he wanted it a little bit. And he was happy.
Yeah, because he you see the thing with Yudhishthira is that he always feels duty bound to do his duty. Yeah. So in that way he didn't want to gamble, but then he feels it's the Kshatriya's duty not to go back when you're challenged. So in that way he ends up gambling away everything. But then after that, the other leaders are there, in the assembly, and some or other they reconcile that at least the Pandavas are not losing themselves and Draupadi, so they get Draupadi back. But they're still, invited after that to another gambling match, and there actually again Yudhishthira, he's gambling away now his whole kingdom again. and then he really has lost his kingdom. And then the deal is that they if they lose this game, they have to be exiled for 13 years, or was it 14, like that.
Oh, okay.
So actually, it is the gambling match after that which is the really fatal one.
Yeah, I remember there was multiple instances.
Yeah. So.
Was the first time who was to get the kingdom of was it Hastinapur?
Yeah, Hastinapur was the capital of the world at that point.
And then it was the the first both gambling matches was after the Raja Suya, right?
Yeah, of course. It's after this incident.
Okay.
It's not long after this incident here, where Duryodhana is humiliated. Then he's gearing up for having a revenge, and that takes place at this gambling match.
I'm actually a little bit excited to read the actual battle of the Mahabharata, because I read all the way up to the exile and where Arjuna fights Shiva, and I didn't get to where Yudhishthira is tested by the river Dharmaraj.
Yeah, this is a great story. This is it's very he's getting the questions from the Yaksha, and that Yaksha is actually, of course, his father. Well, this is a really great story. We should talk about that on a later occasion. Maybe we should have a different, stream just for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, but for now, I think we will wrap up. I want to, from now on, from this point, I want to have it every day. I'll just try and do that as a marathon. As a,
Yes.
I thank you very much for your support, Prabhu.
Of course.
So we will try again around the same time, 7, 8 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sounds good.
So thank you so much.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.